Hi there, Old and Surly here. Today we're taking a look at a great mock by RogueMOCs. This is the Coruscant Police Gunship, and there hasn't been an actual Lego kit since 2014, 2015 on this. And I think since the recent Ahsoka show showed the Imperial version of the gunship, this seemed like a perfect time to dig this out and assemble it and show it off a little bit. It contains 480 pieces, takes about an hour to an hour and a half to fully assemble, and overall is a great mock. It has some very interesting and unique build designs on some of the side structures and things like that. Is a very overall sturdy item, and even comes with a nice little support stand, which I think is critical to allow this to sit correctly in your display. So I give them a lot of props for even adding that in there to ensure that it's both displayable and playable. I think overall this is a great design for both advanced AFOLs as well as even mid to late children. I wouldn't say this is something that you would give to a very young builder, but I think that overall, even those teenage and up would have a great time trying to assemble this piece because it has a lot of unique building steps. There's a couple that might give them a little bit of trouble just assembling things before it fully is structured and gives it some support, but I think overall they wouldn't have any major issues with this at all. Plus, the ability for this to have several playability functions in it is also extremely nice. Taking a look at the interior, it actually has room inside for two minifigures, which is great. Both sides have these opening doors on both sides to include these side structures that also go down. So it's a very unique two-piece side entrance, which I think is really nice. Rather than just going with one large piece, it actually has this small side structure on the bottom and this three-quarter section up on the top. And one interesting thing that he also added is inside they've also added a light brick, and that comes with the kit, which I think is really nice. As you can see here, it lights up that cockpit very nicely. I think overall it's a great little piece, and it's easy to get to, so you can turn it on and off with literally the flip of a switch with your finger. Looking at the main cockpit, it also has room for two pilots. It does have some nice granular detail, and I do apologize for the lighting in there, but as you can see, it does have some pretty well-defined cockpit areas. The only small thing on this is that the front cockpit window is so heavy that it will not stand on its own, so you're going to have to hold it up with a finger to actually get folks in and out, but that's a small thing. And overall, I think they did a tremendous job with all of these wedge pieces to really give that cockpit some great angles, and it flows very nicely in my opinion, and it really gives a lot of appearance of visibility. Even though it's not completely see-through, there are some solid bricks underneath that support these translucents. I think he did a great job of covering that up and really giving the illusion of a see-through canopy. And again, as I said, it's heavy, but it's well structured, so this thing is not going to break on you unless you figure out how to work it a little bit. Probably the only area that has a little bit of delicacy is here on the top. This centerline structure here actually does not attach at the front. It attaches to several studs from some snot bricks up on the side here. So you connect it on the back end, and basically it kind of leans forward into position. So just be careful when you're picking it up not to push too hard on this section of the top, or it might pop off. But again, all it takes is just reattaching the studs at the back there and you'll have no issues. I love the fact that all of the wing structures are slightly movable. These are also on hinges as well, so you can adjust the angles. These sections here are also on hinge pieces, and I think this is probably the only small thing, and it's not a problem based on his design or anything. Just these sections kind of connect and overlap each other a little bit. It's not a perfect corner, but again, it's nothing that he did wrong. He did this design, and it actually looks quite nice. It's just the actual Lego pieces themselves. But again, once you get it in place, it looks perfectly fine. There's no major issues there. I love the greebling and detail on the side, and this is where a lot of that interesting build comes into play. He does some very interesting side structures underneath these sections that don't actually connect into one another, but give some great design and angles to the overall structure without just making it a solid brick, which I thought is a really nice thing. There is no rear ramp, but then again, there is no rear ramp shown in any of the police gunship video that I could find, so I don't think that that's too bad. These rear wing structures, which are made from these very long blades, fits in quite well, and of course are also swooshable and angleable based on your designs. With this small spotlight on the bottom, you can't actually stand it up without either removing that spotlight and then it'll rest fully on the rear, unless you use the included translucent stand there, as you see. And that's what I chose to do, because I think overall it really does allow this ship to really display well. And as I mentioned, it's sturdy enough that you could swoosh this thing around and have a good time as a younger builder, but it looks great. It doesn't have any of the normal flick missiles and things like that some of us don't really care for in our display pieces. So I think overall this is a great compromise in playability and displayability. I think that especially if you're building a Coruscant gunship or looking at maybe doing a Coruscant MOC, this will fit in quite well. I plan on purchasing several Coruscant shock troopers to go ahead and fully outfit this for a future MOC. Again, as you see, there are some guns and things like that on here. These are very structured. They're not swivels. They don't move around very well, but they're also very sturdy. They're not going to break off. As you can see, I'm shaking the whole ship by that gun, and it's not going anywhere. So that is one thing I like. While it may not have a lot of guns and flick fire missiles for a younger builder, I think it looks quite nice and it'll do quite well in your MOC or display. This is actually available at Republic Bricks right now. This isn't a sponsorship in any way. I actually went and bought this on my own. It's going for between $45 and $60, depending on which version you get. They also sell an Imperial Gray color, which is, I believe it's the exact same instructions. It's just in the full Imperial Gray rather than having the multicolors like you see here for that Clone War era. And honestly, I think the Clone War era just has a little more character to it, although I can see myself buying one of those Imperial gunships just to use perhaps in a future Ahsoka MOC. Now that we've seen them, no spoilers, but there are some gunships in the Ahsoka series if you haven't watched it already, and I highly recommend you do. You'll see these type of ships, and I think that this might generate some interest. I don't know if LEGO will ever go back to the drawing board and recreate another one, since it's been almost 10 years since the last time they did it, but they've surprised us a few times in the recent releases, so I wouldn't be surprised. But again, my big fear is that they might try to downsize it, and by doing so also lose some of the playability. And again, despite this being a MOC, it's extremely rigid. I could see this being a great play set for somebody as well as a display set. So if I were to assign this a grade overall, I'd give it at least a 9.5 out of 10. I love the design. It was a very easy to follow build instruction set. I think it goes together very well. I had no major issues during assembly, and after assembly, I have not had any issues with this thing falling apart. I've even accidentally dropped it a couple times while trying to get it up on this little display. And the only things that popped off were these tail sections, which reconnected very quickly with the studs right there. So I have to say RogueMOCs did a tremendous job in building this, providing playability as well as displayability. Any small takeaways I have are just minor preferences. Like I said, the only thing that maybe I wish was a little designed differently were these front panels right here on these front wing structures. But again, he built it to the abilities of the bricks. It's nothing that he did wrong. And I think he did a great job with it. So a solid 9.5 out of 10. I will provide a link to the kit in my comment section just for those of you that might be interested. And I think if you're looking for something to add to that upcoming Coruscant MOC, or just a collector of great ship designs like I am, I don't think you can go wrong with this at all. If you have any questions or you'd like to see some additional video or photos of the interiors, or have any questions about the build itself, please feel free to reach out. I'm always happy to answer any questions that you might have. As always, this is Old and Surly saying, have a great day and keep building.